I found a deal on this massive 5,500 wide spool winch. This is a knockoff of the old Harbor Freight winch. They're good winches. The free spool sucks, but everything else on them is pretty good. Came with synthetic, with all the mount plates and stuff, and the synthetic fair lead. On Amazon, shipped to my door for $136 or something. So check out the description for a link to this super cheap winch I found. And the old mount that was on this Pioneer 500 was a disaster. That was this contraption. It went under the bumper. It added a lot of weight. It was really stupid and hard to get to. So I fixed that. I took the factory winch mount they give you and I welded it, put a piece of flat bar, welded it here, welded it there. Same thing over here. Drilled a hole through the piece of flat bar, bolted it up, welded it. So most of the tension is in this way, but there is some twisting force, right? So this helps cancel out that twisting force. I think it's going to be plenty strong. Then up here, I notched the front of this to go around the fair lead, left as much metal as I could because this piece strengthens the bumper. And now we've got a high mount, easily accessible winch that's going to be strong and easy to keep, not from bird nesting and stuff. And of course, I left a sticker on there to remind me not to lose another chunk of my finger. Anyway, so I'm going to bolt the winch up and get it wired up. Also going to do a wireless winch controller because that comes in super handy. But I like where it is. It is blocking a little bit of airflow to my radiator, but of course there's a fan there, and at low speeds, there's not really a ram air effect anyway, and that's when it matters. Yeah, so super cheap, basically free winch mount. I used everything that came with the winch and then a couple pieces of flat bar. So you can't beat it. Of course, you do need a welder. However, this welder, it costs less than most winch mounts. So just buy you a little welder. Yes. Okie dokie, so I got it all wired up. The winch convention is yellow-blue. That's what you see a lot. Even the Honda OEM winch switch I'm using has yellow, blue, black out of it, with black being the hot. Now these wires look like this because they're all temporary. I soldered into the cigarette lighter there for my power and ground. And the reason I need a power and ground, not just power, is I'm gonna have a wireless winch controller on here, mounted up here. So I'm leaving this open until my winch controller comes in tomorrow to wire in the wireless part of it. But it'll work independently. The switch and the wireless will work without one or the other. So, redundancy, and you can spool the winch out, pull yourself out if you're by yourself without walking back and forth 40 times. The solenoid gets a ground from the ground wire that runs to the battery. It gets power from one of these, and depending on which one gets power, it locks in either configuration, right? This is a switching solenoid to give the winch its two polarities. Killed my last winch was that switch going bad and sticking, and then it burnt the winch up. So hopefully that won't happen with this switch. Also, I wired it into the ignition properly, so if the winch gets stuck on and the ignition's off, it won't break itself. Sometimes I actually add a second kill switch. Not doing them on this one. A few tips: mount your winch solenoid where it's easily accessible. So I have this big storage thing that sits in this whole area here. The winch solenoid used to be mounted down here. This was the Honda wiring kit. Someone had a Honda OEM winch on this thing at one point. That's why I'm using all these wires and not the aftermarket ones. They're better. But I didn't like where the solenoid was mounted because when it went bad, I couldn't get to it very easily. So I got it up here. The box sits here, so it's on the side of the box where I can easily get to it. If I have a wiring issue or a switch goes bad, I can jump it, right? I can just give power, take one of these, stick it on the power wire to the battery, which is this one, and I can use the winch in an emergency without any switches at all. So yeah, mounting your winch wires where you can get to them is key. Of course, down here, this winch is kind of exposed. I did mount it off center, so this wouldn't be hanging out so much. But a tree or something could grab these wires, so I have them tucked in around the bumper to keep them from getting a branch through there and damaging it, hopefully. Waterproof screens working well, light bars working well, so pretty happy with all the mods I've done on this thing so far. Boom. Yeah. Coming along. The goal is to get this thing ready to try to do Brick Lake. Unfortunately, very much rain this week, so it might not be possible. But if it dries up enough, I'll definitely give it a shot. Okay, so I was kind of worried about a tree hitting here, sliding over here and ripping the terminal off, so I welded on this bracket. It's not beautiful because it was kind of nasty, rusty metal. But this piece of bracket actually came from right there when I did the frame chop swap. So yes, it's hideous, but it will protect the winch. If this side gets hit, it'll break the free spool, but that's a little less likely to get hit, doesn't stick out as far, and I don't care as much because the free spool's gonna break itself anyway after a bunch of mud and water. Guys, the winch setup is complete. So let me walk you through how I did the control wiring. You got a standard switch here that works with the key on, in, out. And then I've got wireless control. Hold this button down for 5 seconds. Out, in. This is really handy when you're up here wheeling it in by yourself on a side-by-side. You end up reaching over the dash. You can't see what you're doing. You get your pecker caught in the winch. Not good. Okay, so this wiring looks a little complicated. I'm gonna talk you through it real quick. Someone's gonna ask. You got 3 wires coming off of the OEM Honda Pioneer winch switch. There were 5. I cut off all the other ones. I only used the black, the blue, and the yellow. Blue and the yellow is the convention for in and out in the winch. Black's the convention for power into the switch. So all the switch does is take power in from the cigarette lighter and give it to either the blue or the yellow. So the black goes to the cigarette lighter hot, which is white. Okay, the black also goes to the red on the winch wireless control box. Red is power into the winch. So power comes out, so the hot comes out of the cigarette lighter, goes into the red here, goes into the black here. Pretty simple. The ground out of the cigarette lighter, the green, just comes in to the black on the winch control wireless box. That's the only place the ground goes. Okay, and then after that, it's pretty simple. Blue and yellow come over to here, which I also have blue and yellow, and then white and yellow come over to here. All the yellows go together. Now, of course, if anything's backwards on your winch, all you have to do is switch the blue and the yellow here, the white and the yellow here, or the green and the white here. I wish these were blue and yellow. They usually are, but they don't match. But yeah, it looks like a lot of wires. It's really not bad. It's all tucked up in there. I know this looks like a cheap wireless controller. That's why I got it mounted up close to the dash. It is a cheapo. They're 15 bucks. They come with 2 remotes. But I've been using it on my Lexus for a year now, and it worked great, so I bought another one. But yeah, wireless control, very nice. This whole setup cost me less than $150. Links in the description if you're interested in doing something similar. One more thing to mention, this is the big storage box on a p500. You got to get one. Even if you want to mount a second battery, mount it in there because it gives you much extra storage. And of course, my winch wires are all around it. And don't interfere.